It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
City to city, coast to coast.
It's time for the Ryan Hickey Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If it's happening in sports, it's being talked about right here. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Good Thursday morning. Welcome in to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Ryan Hickey Show, as you just heard, with you right here for the next 2 hours until 11 a.m. Eastern. Very excited for the show. I think we got a fun, jam-packed, exciting, entertaining show that I think you will enjoy for the next 2 hours. We are coming to you live, as we always are, from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios, where there's great pizza, hot heroes, and phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria in person in Medford, Joe's Pizzeria in Bayshore, classic New York pizza joint, also in Bayshore, or online wherever you are, at BigItalyPizza.com. So right now, as you sit here, it is the 15th day of April. What does that mean? We are 2 weeks away. That's it. 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. I am very excited for it to be here. We have gone through all the mock drafts. We have deep dived into these prospects, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. Really the most controversial position. Who should go number 2? Who should go number 3? Is it Justin Fields? Is it Mac Jones? Is it Trey Lance? We are finally nearing the end, and we will finally actually have some answers for once. So we'll get into that. Eric Edholm, very talented NFL draft reporter for Yahoo Sports, will join us in exactly 35 minutes from now at 9:40 Eastern. We'll get his thoughts, how does he decide for the quarterbacks. And there's one area, there's something, especially when it comes to quarterbacks specifically, that we tend to ignore that has arguably the biggest impact on whether they succeed or fail. We'll get Eric's thoughts if he agrees with me as well. Kevin Durant sat last night versus the Sixers. Both the Nets and the Sixers came into yesterday's game tied for first place. A lot of people were upset that Kevin Durant did not play. I'll tell you why. It was the right decision by the Nets to sit KD. We'll do that at 10 a.m. Eastern. Speaking of the NFL draft, quarterbacks, more quarterbacks. Well, how about we talk about some non-QBs in the draft? I'll give you a big board, real big, top 5 non-quarterbacks heading to this draft. And Fox Bet put out, I'm very excited about this, their NFL win totals for the year. We'll do this in 15 minutes. 6 teams that I thought really stood out to me. 3, I thought Vegas massively underrating these 3 teams with their win over-under total. And 3 that I think once you take a look at it quickly, like, that's a little low, that's a little high, that I think to me Vegas nailed. So 3 teams they underrated, 3 teams to me they nailed to perfection. We'll do that in 15 minutes or so right here. But I do want to start sort of with the over-under win totals here, but kind of use it to a bigger point. I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns. They made a move yesterday. They signed edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney, 1 year, up to $10 million in incentives. Market wasn't too rich for Clowney, but again, the Browns, who were interested last year, he ended up signing with Tennessee. They get their man this year. So I want to ask you, because now when you look at the team the Browns are putting together, where do they rank? Are they one of the best teams? Let's just leave out the NFL. Are they one of the best teams in the AFC? Are they one of the best teams in their own conference? Because speaking of the win totals, we'll get to more here, again, 15 minutes. But when you look at the win totals that Fox Bet put out there, their answer is no. They don't think the Browns are one of the best teams in the AFC. Because the Browns' over-under win total for this year is 9.5. And remember, with the 17th game, that's saying either the Browns are going to go 9-8 or 10-7. Basically hover right around 500 this year. There are 3 teams in the AFC alone with higher win totals than the Browns. The Chiefs, obviously, the Ravens, and the Bills. So those 3 teams have higher win totals than the Browns. 4 other teams are tied with the Browns that have over-unders at 9.5. This, again, according to Fox Bet, with their NFL win totals they put out earlier this week. The Colts, Titans, Patriots, Chargers. Colts, Titans, Patriots, Chargers. All 4 of those teams have the same over-under win total, 9.5, than the Browns. So 3 teams greater than, 4 teams equal with. So you just do the math. There's 7 teams. The Browns are in a cluster of 7 teams in the AFC alone, just the AFC. That's what Vegas thinks of the Browns, that they are a good team, not pretty good, not great, not elite in their own conference, just in terms of the AFC. Well, look, I understand Vegas stands because they win more than not. I understand that the reason why this whole gambling business is alive is because they win more than not, right? The house usually wins. But I think Vegas is wrong here. I think Vegas is massively underrating the Cleveland Browns. In my mind, behind the Chiefs, behind the Bills, the Browns are the third best team in the AFC. For a few reasons. Number one, I love the core group that they have built, especially, and that starts with Baker Mayfield. I am a Baker Mayfield believer. I understand the first 2 years were, we'll say, rough, especially year number 2. A lot of expectations, and the Browns, especially Baker Mayfield, significantly underperformed. But you look in his first year with Kevin Stefanski, frankly, in his first year with a competent head coach. Hugh Jackson, we can't say he's a competent head coach. Freddie Kitchens, one-and-done head coach. Are you going to say he's competent? I'm not saying he's competent. So in his first year with actual real coaching with a guy that knows offense and Kevin Stefanski, Baker Mayfield threw 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And this is the first time, going to year number 4 of Baker Mayfield's career, first time that he will have the same head coach, the same offensive system, the same playbook, the same terminology going from one year to another. He has familiarity and continuity with the way the offense works, with the schemes, with the play calls, with the audibles, with the verbiage for the first time in his career. And I think, honestly, that's going to translate really well into year number 2. I thought, all things considered, year number 1, he wasn't asked to do a lot. And year number 1 under Kevin Stefanski, meaning the 2020 season. They ran the ball a ton. Baker Mayfield made the throws he had to make. He wasn't asked to put the team on his back in most games to where he's throwing the ball 35, 40, 45 times a game in order for the Browns to win. There was great balance, and to me, he did what he was asked to do in year number 1. I think now year number 2 is where a big step comes, where he's asked to do more. I think he can do it. So I think he's going to thrive. I think he's going to make a big jump, to be honest, from year number 1 with Kevin Stefanski to year number 2. I think this is going to be a big year for Baker Mayfield. So that's part of the reason why I am believing in the Browns, as only behind the Chiefs, as only behind the Bills. And when you look also at this core, especially with the offense, speaking of balance, and they have a great running game. Last year, they were third in the NFL in rushing. I'd argue right now, I don't think it's up for much debate. They have the best 1-2 punch in the NFL with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. A solid wide receiver group. I like Jarvis Landry. Odell Beckham Jr. coming back from injury. Solid tight end group, and we know Kevin Stefanski loves to use tight ends. You have Austin Hooper. They're able to draft Harrison Bryant last year. He was a rookie, made some impact. So they were able, again, to have not only the ability to run the ball and run the ball really, really well. And let's not forget, they had last year, PFF ranked the Browns' offensive line as number 1 in the NFL. And they didn't lose anybody. So they have a great offensive line carrying over from last year. Solid wide receiver group to throw the ball to. Solid tight end group to throw the ball to. A tremendously talented running game. To me, the offense is going to take off in year number 2 under Kevin Stefanski. And let's not forget, in free agency, they addressed their biggest weakness. I think secondary, when looking back at last year, secondary was their biggest weakness for the Browns. Well, they signed John Johnson, a safety from Los Angeles. They signed Troy Hill, a corner from the Rams as well. So they were able to get 2 guys to address a secondary position in free agency. Oh, yeah, by the way, they have Grant Delpit, their second-round pick from LSU, the safety who unfortunately got hurt in training camp, missed the entire year. Greedy Williams, another corner, young guy now heading to year number 3. He also missed the entire year last year, so both are returning from injury. So you have 4, essentially, new pieces in the secondary to add to shore up that unit from 2021 now compared to 2020. So I am buying in. I like the Browns a lot. And that's why I couldn't believe when Fox Bet put out the over-under for the Browns at 9.5. This team, I think, is going to take off. I think they're winning the division. This team, to me, I'm telling you, is the third best team in the AFC behind the Chiefs, behind the Bills. Vegas doesn't think so. They think the Ravens are better. They put the Browns in the same conversation as the Colts, the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Titans. So here's the thing about those teams as well. I didn't even, if you don't know, in case you're a new listener, welcome. With the Patriots, I'm not believing in all of their free agent moves. It was flashy. They got a lot of attention that they were signing every single player that seemingly was available the Patriots were signing. But here's why I'm not bullish on the Patriots heading to 2021. I don't like the quarterback. Whether it's Cam Newton, I'm not a believer in him. I don't really see how 2021 personally is going to be a lot different than 2020. If they draft a young quarterback, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, whoever, I am not skeptical depending on who it is, but I'm just not ready to go all in where they are a playoff team. They are going to be this, team that's back, if you will. I think the Patriots have a lot of work to do. Now, to their credit, they did try to address a lot of that in free agency. I'm just not buying a lot of the moves that they did. So I'm not bullish on the Patriots per se. I don't think that the Browns and the Patriots are on the same playing field at all. Chargers, I like. They're on the up and up. I like Justin Herbert. We'll see now if defenses have figured him out or if he's able to adjust their adjustments. I still think the Browns have just a way better team, personally. The Titans, to me, are regressing. I don't know about you, and full disclosure, I'm a Colts fan. So obviously the Titans are a team that has faced the Colts a ton. Those two teams have been in the division race the last few years. There's just something about the Titans I just don't buy. And maybe it's because their team and their success rate when Derrick Henry is not rushing for 100 yards isn't good. The more I look at this team, they lose a lot of talent. I understand that, they made that big run to the AFC title game 2 years ago. I just am not looking at the Titans as a team that I truly do believe in. I think that they might not make the playoffs this year. So I am certainly not putting the Titans in that category as the Browns. And the Ravens obviously are the team closest to these teams we're talking about here in the conversation. Fox Bet has Vegas. Fox Bet has the Ravens winning or has their over-under 2 games higher than the Browns. They have them at 11.5. They actually have the Ravens have the second highest AFC win total number at 11.5, only behind the Chiefs. Even higher than the Bills. Here's the thing about the Ravens that scares me. Their biggest weakness, as we know, is their pass offense. Now, not that they can't pass the ball, and not that obviously they need to pass the ball a ton. As we know, Lamar Jackson, with his athleticism and the way they run the ball so much, they are a run-first offense. What scares me about the Ravens is that when they are forced to pass the ball, when they have to get into a situation where either they're trailing or the run game's not working and they need to throw the ball, my concern is that they don't have the receivers to do so. There's no target, there's no weapon for Lamar Jackson that's a security blanket outside of Mark Andrews. Hollywood Brown, small guy, don't really like the way they use him. They just recently signed Sammy Watkins. Is Sammy Watkins now a receiver that goes to Baltimore? I'm like, whew, man, watch out for the Ravens. Guys, hey, I know they run the ball. We got to double and triple cover Sammy Watkins. We can't have Sammy Watkins beat us here. But let's just say this. Sammy Watkins going to Baltimore won't have the same effect that Stephon Diggs going to Buffalo did for Josh Allen in this offense. So I don't like the pass catchers that Lamar has to throw to. I don't think that they are able to beat defenses. And to me, that limits the Ravens. That, to me, limits their upside. Despite having an MVP at quarterback, despite having a dynamic running game, and I like the way their team is built. They're very balanced. But I do get worried, and I think the Browns, to me, are surging in the right direction. I think the Ravens still going to be a very good team. I think still make the playoffs. When it comes to matching up with the Browns, I think the Browns will pass and go ahead of the Ravens this year. So I am buying in, and I can't believe the disrespect the Cleveland Browns are getting. To me, they are the third best team in the NFL. Vegas does not think so. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where do you rank the Browns? How good can Cleveland be this year? Vegas says, in the mix with 7 other teams. 3 teams, just in the AFC alone. Chiefs, Ravens, Bills. Higher win totals. Right now, the Browns are in the same conversation in Vegas' mind with the Chargers, the Patriots, the Colts, and the Titans. I think they're head and shoulders by far better than all 4 of those teams. I think they're better than the Ravens. I think they're the third best team in the AFC. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're listening on Facebook, you can comment right there on the live stream Facebook, which is our homepage, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If you're listening on Twitter, we appreciate that. You can comment on the live stream on Twitter as well. You can find our stream at WWSRN_radio. WWSRN_radio is where, or is our Worldwide Sports Radio Network handle. You can also find the show on the show Twitter page at Ryan Hickey Show, at Ryan Hickey Show, spelled exactly how it sounds. So up to your thoughts. Are the Browns the third best team in the AFC? Could the Browns give the Chiefs, the Bills, a run for their money the way they are constructed right now? They had Jadeveon Clowney. What do you think of the Browns? Are they our top 3 team in the AFC? Or are you with Vegas that, they're overrated? You're not totally believing in Cleveland. It is still the Browns after all. So get your thoughts, and when we come back, we will hit on some of those Vegas over-unders that they set for Fox Bet. 3 teams Vegas is massively underrating. 3 teams I think they nailed. They crushed. The number is spot on. We'll tell you what those 6 teams are next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome back into the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, talking Cleveland Browns. They signed Jadeveon Clowney yesterday. Now, to be fair, I should have said this maybe at the start. I'm not even a big Clowney fan per se. I think at this point he's more name than actual play in his career. I think, he carries a bigger name, former number 1 overall pick. Then I think right now what he'll actually give Cleveland, I don't think it would be too much of an impact. With that said, though, when you think and look at this Browns roster, this team to me is super talented, heading in the right direction. I think they're the 3rd best team in the AFC. Just behind the Chiefs and the Bills. And I think they're right there, especially with the Bills. But Vegas does not think so. We'll get into over-unders here in a second, but Fox Bet this week put out their win totals for every NFL team. Looking at just the AFC alone, 3 teams ahead of the Browns. Chiefs obvious, Bills obvious, and also the Ravens. And 4 teams had the same win total as the Browns. The Colts, the Titans, the Chargers, and the Patriots. I think it's massive disrespect. Browns are way better than the 4 teams that have the same number as them. I think they're better than the Ravens. I think they'll be right there with the Bills. I think easily the Browns are the 3rd best team in the NFL. I love the direction that they're heading. I think Kevin Stefanski's been a great head coach. Big jump here for Baker Mayfield in year 2 in the same system. I'm very excited. I am very excited about the direction the Browns are heading in. So I'm curious your thoughts. Are you with me here? Are you a Browns believer? Who would have ever thought we'd be saying those words? Browns believer. They've been a doormat, a dumpster fire, a joke for almost 2 decades. But they are finally turning it around. So if you agree or disagree, I'd love to hear why. If you don't think the Browns are the 3rd best team in the AFC, that's no problem. I'd love to hear you out. I'd love to hear your reasoning why, and we can do that. Comment on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network. You can tweet me at Ryan Hickey Show. Tweet the network's account at WWSRN_radio. Or comment on the live stream that is being broadcasted on both of those channels as well. So speaking of NFL win totals, and we'll get to Eric Edholm here, 15 minutes. Yahoo Sports NFL Draft reporter does a great job. We'll get his thoughts here and break down a few draft questions as we are 2 weeks away from the NFL Draft. But like we said, Vegas and Fox Bet specifically puts these win totals out here, as we know, to make money, right? Vegas doesn't look to lose money. They only put these numbers out. They only put the lines out to make money. Well, I think 3 of the lines, 3 of the over-under win totals to me are absolutely correct. They crushed 3 teams. And to me, they are severely underrating 3 teams. So we'll start where Vegas is wrong, right? Because we always love, because Vegas wins so much, the house wins so much, we want to prove Vegas wrong. We know what we're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. So let's do so. 3 teams where I think Vegas is grossly underrating teams, I think, where they are wrong. Here are 3 examples. We'll start with the team we just started with, the Cleveland Browns. Their over-under, we'll do this one quick because obviously we just hit on the Browns a lot. Their win total number is 9.5. And remember, 17th game this year. So let's just say they miss the over, and let's say they hit the under on that number. Do you think the Browns are going 9-8 in 2021? I don't. Do you think they're in the range, I should say, of 9-8 or 10-7? I don't. I think they're way better than that. I think this is a 12-5, 13-4 kind of team. I really do. I think the Browns are going to cruise by this number. Especially the extra game. That, to me, it benefits them. I love the building blocks that they have made the last few years. Kevin Stefanski, to me, seems like the right head coach. He won Coach of the Year last year, deservingly so. I think he has this team trending in the right direction. They addressed the secondary in free agency, their biggest weakness, I thought, in 2020. They're shoring up a weakness. To me, their offense is really poised here for a big breakout in 2021. They do everything well. They're very balanced. I think Baker Mayfield's going to have a big year. I like the Browns way over a 9.5. I think Vegas is really giving them a raw deal here. Think about it. Again, I just said this before. The Chargers, the Patriots, the Colts, the Titans, and the Browns all have the same win total. It's one of those things where it's like, pick the one that doesn't belong. The Browns don't belong. To me, they are way better than at least three of those teams. Depending on how Carson Wentz plays with the Colts. I like the Colts roster outside of him. But if it's a Carson Wentz we saw last year, 2019, Colts are going down. Colts will be right at that number. I think I do think the Browns will go past that. So 9.5 to me, win total is very, very low for Cleveland. I think Vegas is wrong there. Another team, even lower than the Browns, the Dolphins at 8.5. Could they finish, in your mind, under 500? They won 10 games last year. I don't. I think, again, this is another number that Vegas is really misjudging here, and I think the Dolphins will be a better team. I think they'll be, by far, a winning team. And they'll be right in the playoff hunt yet again. Because think about it. They won 10 games last year. They were 10-6 last year. Despite, collection-wise, having one of the worst group of skill position total players in the NFL. Their running backs were awful. Their receivers outside of Devontae Parker weren't good and often injured. I like Mike Gesicki at tight end. He's athletic, but there's a lot of better tight ends out there. So the group, the collective skill positions were awful. Tua was up and down in his rookie year, where he had to go to Ryan Fitzpatrick a few times. I will say this. I'm a believer in Tua. I think year 2 will be smoother than year 1. These skill position players will get better. They got Will Fuller, so if he can stay off the PEDs, he could be and stay healthy. Which is a huge if. Forget just the PEDs. If he can actually stay healthy, that's a massive question mark. But if so, that's a deep threat that now Tua has. They at number 6, most likely, and again, we'll see. But the odds of them getting either Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase seem very high. So you are automatically now, day 1, going to get a rookie that is a game breaker at receiver, tight end, and Kyle Pitts is kind of both. So that's a massive weapon there that Tua has at his disposal. Defense with Brian Flores does great. I mean, they do really more with less than, they're one of the teams, I should say, that is more with less in the NFL than any other team defensively. I'm a Brian Flores believer. I am a Tua Tagovailoa believer. I think they will continue to build off of year 1 in that partnership. I think Tua will have a bounce back year. I think he will right the ship and move forward. So that, to me, 8.5 is a very low number for the Dolphins. I like the Dolphins. Same as last year. I think they will be right in the playoff hunt. 10 wins, 11 wins for Miami. That, to me, at 8.5 is a very low number. A lot of disrespect for Vegas towards Miami. And finally, this is a high number. Buccaneers, right? They have the second highest number behind only the Chiefs. Their number is 11.5. So obviously it's high, but this is why I think the Buccaneers will go over this number. And I think, honestly, 12-5 record-wise is their floor. Think about it. Last year, they won 11 games. They won 11-5 in the regular season. And really, for the first 3 months of the year, for the first 12 games of the season, the Buccaneers went 7-5. It was very rocky. It was very shaken. You can add that up to a collective of Tom Brady going to a new team, having no offseason training whatsoever, having to sneak onto high school fields just to be able to throw the ball to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, having a truncated training camp, 0 preseason games, trying to learn a new offense on the fly with Bruce Arians, getting asked to do, I should say, something that he has never done in his 20 years in New England. That is air the ball out, throw it deep, and throw it deep often. So brand new offensive philosophy, system, skill positions he's throwing to. Just everything is brand new for Tom Brady for the first time in 20 years. That is an adjustment period. And as we saw, it was rocky at times. It was shaky. It was up and down. They went 7-5. But now heading to 2021, you have Tom Brady comfortable in the offense. You have Tom Brady already building chemistry, continuity, familiarity with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, with every receiver on the team. You know why? Because the Buccaneers are returning every single starter, all 22, from 2020 to 2021. So now I'll ask you this question. Despite, again, the number for the Buccaneers being 11.5, I'll ask you this. Tom Brady now has a full offseason, again, to work where maybe there won't be OTAs in person, but again, the offseason will be more normal this year than it was last year. You have training camp return to somewhat of normalcy. Preseason games, whether even he plays or not, the point is he actually now is familiar with the offense. He knows the players. He knows kind of their small patterns. They know Tom Brady. I think this is going to be a massive year for the Buccaneers. They will just take off right away. There's going to be no 7-5 start through the first 12 games of the year. They're not going to have to build chemistry on the fly in essentially a game-like atmosphere. They already have that. So now, to me, they're going to get even better. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers players have said this after the Super Bowl. They think 2021 will be even better than 2020. I agree with them. Regular season-wise, especially. I mean, that's why I think 12-5 is the absolute worst record I could foresee, barring injury, for this team. And even look at their schedule. 2 hardest games they have on their schedule: at the Rams, home versus the Bills. Every other game they're going to be favored in. And they'll probably be favorites at home against the Bills, maybe slight underdogs against the Rams. That's about it. So they'll be favored in at least 16 of 17 games. Now, obviously, that doesn't, what does that mean? Nothing. We play the game in the field. But I am buying into this Buccaneers team. They are really, really good. They've returned literally everybody. And it's interesting, too. I don't know if you heard this. Maybe not, because it's a smaller player. But Giovanni Bernard, former Bengals running back, he's out with the Buccaneers. Is that a move that's going to put him over the top? No. But the reason why I bring him up and bring up his signing, he had a press conference earlier this week where he described why he decided to sign with the Buccaneers. He said when he was talking to the Buccaneers and other teams, he got the sense from the Buccaneers that basically, sure, they won the Super Bowl last year just a few months ago, but they were hungry to basically prove people wrong. They were ready to send a message to the rest of the league. And you think, I'm with you. What kind of message are they possibly trying to send? They just won the Super Bowl. Who are you trying to prove wrong? But as we know, Tom Brady always has that motivation, always has that chip on his shoulder. And according to Giovanni Bernard, he got that sense through the entire team. So there's going to be no lackadaisical start to the year. There's going to be no hangover from the Super Bowl. This team's going to come out of the gates firing. And I'm a believer in it. So Buccaneers, despite having, again, the second highest win total number at 11.5, only behind the Chiefs, I think they will blow by is a stretch. I think they will easily clear this number. Like I said, to me, again, barring injury, 12-5 is the record. I think that worst case scenario, that's what the Buccaneers will face. I'm a big believer in the Buccaneers. Vegas, a little cautious. I think the Buccaneers at 11.5, Dolphins at 8.5, Browns at 9.5. 3 teams where Vegas is seriously wrong about. I think Vegas is underrating all 3 of those teams. I think all 3 of those teams will clear the number with relative ease. I do. So here's what we'll do. Because I think Vegas not only is wrong, I think they have 3 teams where they are very spot on with. We look at the number like, there's no way that they'll be this good or this bad. I think Vegas is spot on. So here's what we'll do. Take a break. When we come back in 4 minutes, Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports, he's a tremendously talented NFL draft reporter. He'll join us. We'll talk about the number 3 overall pick. He mocked Mac Jones. We'll ask why. Comparison-wise, Mac Jones versus Joe Burrow. 2 guys with similar careers in college, but draft-wise, totally different narratives. We'll ask Eric Edholm why that is. And there's one area I feel like we never really consider when it comes to this time in the draft when determining guys' success or failure? Well, ask Eric. What is the most important part of a quarterback's success in the NFL? So we'll do all that again with Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports. Next, it is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome back into the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Draft day is 2 weeks away from today. We are finally getting there, almost at the finish line. So now, no better person to talk to kind of get some last-minute questions out of the way, kind of really start to break down here where a few guys could actually be landing in the NFL draft. And now we welcome on Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports, very talented NFL draft reporter. You can follow Eric's work on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Eric, appreciate the time. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes. I'm sure it is a very, very hectic time at this point of the year. Everyone's trying to get those last-minute questions in, trying to really kind of get their fingerprints in and trying to get some idea overall in the draft. So I have a question for you right away. Obviously, the talking point and a lot of the focus has been on quarterbacks. Who's going to go where? Should Mac Jones go to the 49ers? Should it be Justin Fields? Who's truly the second-best quarterback in this draft? When we're looking at actual success on the field, let's say in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, how important is the landing spot for these teams where they get drafted? Forget about going number 1 and number 2. In your mind, how important is landing spot for the future or failure for all these guys?
Yeah, all things being equal, I mean, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, obviously, they're all the top 5 guys all have different sets of skills and talent levels and experience and all that. But, you know, I really, when you look back and see quarterback failures, some of them is just, hey, look, the guy, we overestimated his skill, that sort of thing. But more often than not, there seems to be a disconnect between the player and the coaching staff, or the player's skill set and the type of offense they're running, perhaps the talent around them. You know, they may cycle through 2 or 3 offensive coordinators during their rookie contract, whatever it may be. So instability, I think, more than anything, is going to be a huge factor in determining whether quarterbacks can play at a high level, or whether they're going to end up having to, you know, be a second chance guy like a Ryan Tannehill or something like that. So, yeah, I think it's absolutely crucial. And you look at Tannehill as an example, and when he got to Tennessee and Arthur Smith learned to use his athleticism and get that play action game going, you know, he became a frontline quarterback. So that's a pretty good indication of that, you know, fit matters.
I'm totally with it. And even guys like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, I'm not sure if they are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, if they go to other teams that don't have maybe the foresight to kind of realize, hey, we got to kind of cater our offense to a specific skill they have or not, instead of focusing on what they aren't. Let's focus on what they are and build towards that. Right. Not every team does that. And I think it is a massive factor going forward. So obviously, with that said, to me, the team that is perfectly right now ready to insulate whatever quarterback they take is the 49ers at number 3. Obviously, as you are well aware, very hotly contested debate at number 3. Who should they take? In your mock draft, you had them taking Mac Jones at number 3. So my question is, what is Mac Jones' ceiling? If he does go 3 to the 49ers, is he a Super Bowl caliber quarterback? Like what do you think ceiling-wise is the highest for Mac Jones here?
Yeah, I mean, I could envision a day where he plays at a higher level than Jimmy Garoppolo did in 2019, right? And you know, the 49ers, if they're able to keep this core together, you know, it wasn't too long ago they were beating the Chiefs by 10 points in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl, you know, with 7 minutes to go or whatever it was. So, you know, we know with that defense, they suffered a rash of injuries last year. You know, there's some great yards after the catch options in the passing game. They have multiple runners. You know, they have Kyle Shanahan, one of the best play callers in the NFL. You know, his system works, I think, when he's got the right pieces. Absolutely. So, you know, that may be the best landing spot for him. And, you know, do I think if he had gone to a lesser team without the creative offensive design and without the weapons and whatever, would he be as successful? No. I think he's the perfect kind of caretaker, if you will, facilitator, whatever word you want to use, to operate on a team that's built that way. You know, I absolutely can see the argument that others are more talented, that others have more upside, more ability to create on their own. I just don't know that's what Kyle Shanahan is necessarily looking for. I mean, he did some great things with Robert Griffin as a rookie. It was a fun, transformative time in the NFL. But since then, he's sort of favored the guys who get the ball to their playmakers and aren't the most creative players on their own. And I suspect that's why Jones's name has been the hot one to place at 3.
So I was just going to ask, like, people that you've talked to, like, right, throughout this whole process, to me, like, I am personally a Justin Fields fan. I think he will have, arguably, if he goes to 49ers, I think he could possibly have the most success of any quarterback taken in this draft. So my question is, to your point, like, we've seen Kyle Shanahan succeed with Matt Ryan, with Jimmy G, with Kirk Cousins, a style of quarterback that's more pocket passer friendly. That is Mac Jones' style of quarterback. Do you, like, when you are talking with people and kind of breaking this down, is it just Kyle Shanahan kind of wanting someone, to your point, that just is almost a point guard, facilitate, get the ball out, make the right reads? Because I at least personally believe, from someone who doesn't, obviously do this as much as you do,
right,
that the offense could be elevated to another level if you have an athlete like Trey Lance or Justin Fields compared to Mac Jones. When you're kind of breaking this down, do you think that it's more Kyle Shanahan preference of just point guard, I don't need someone to take the offense to another level, my offense works with a pocket guy? Is that kind of the reason you think that maybe Mac Jones now is the hot name at number 3?
Yeah, I think his accuracy, his touch, I mean, his placement is as good as anybody in this class. I mean, I think he's been better than Trevor Lawrence if you go throw by throw. And he was a better deep ball thrower than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor has a better arm talent. He can throw from different angles and, throw on the run. Mac isn't as good at those things. But, Mac puts the ball at a beautiful arc down the field when he is asked to throw deep. And his short accuracy, we kind of maybe roll our eyes at that. But that's an important thing, right? If you're not putting the ball in a spot where the receiver can then easily catch it and not have to gear down to catch it and keep that momentum going and get yards up for the catch, then that's a trait that I would understand why they'd favor. I'm in agreement with you. I think Justin Fields has a great chance to emerge a terrific playmaker in this league. I've sort of compared his rise as a thrower similar to Dak Prescott, who was, a spread option QB in college and, really took a big jump from his junior to his senior year. So I really think that Fields has already kind of made a noticeable jump, and I think has more room to grow after that. So, yeah, I mean, it almost tells me if there's a bigger picture is that, let's say they do take Jones at 3. They traded 2 picks to move up to get to that spot, 3 picks rather, 2 first-rounders. And, I mean, what is Jimmy Garoppolo's place on the team? Is he just the caretaker for the first 10 games? They try to trade him at the trade deadline, or do they have to immediately move him? Is it too awkward a situation to where, it's not going to be tenable? I don't know. That's my biggest question, and I almost kind of wonder whether that may not be the next move in line because, they've kind of bolstered some of the depth at quarterback this offseason a little bit, and I don't really know exactly what the next step is. But if you're going to trade that much, I would assume Mac Jones is somebody you feel like can step in right away and start immediately if needed.
Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be fascinating. I mean, it sounds like they want a first-round pick. I'm not sure how many teams are lining up, Eric. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To give them now, we're talking Eric Edholm, Yahoo Sports NFL draft reporter. So speaking of Mac Jones, I want to ask you this question about him from this perspective. So last year, I think him and Joe Burrow, similar one-year meteoric rises to where 2019, we're talking about Joe Burrow to the Bengals, slam dunk, kind of how we're talking about Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars, not even question, we accept it, let's move on. Where obviously, as you know, Mac Jones is arguably the biggest lightning rod in this draft. People love him, people hate him at number 3. When you're scouting both these quarterbacks, is there something that stands out to you that maybe we are, like, why we accepted it in your mind? Joe Burrow, number 1, no question, despite his despite his 1 year with tons of talent on LSU, compared to Mac Jones doing similar things in less games with similar talent around him. Like, why do you think there is this such contrast between how we view Joe Burrow and how we view Mac Jones?
Yeah, Burrow, I think he has that creative element, whereas Mac is more of just sort of a play within the system guy. We saw him extend plays a little bit. The Mississippi game comes to mind where he, sort of bought time a little bit, could extend plays a little. And he'll take free yards when you give them to him. But Joe Burrow, the running element was a big part of his game. Now, I think everybody knows he's not an elite athlete, but he's a pretty competitive guy and a pretty darn good athlete, I think. I sort of worry about his health with all the hits he's, taken and everything like that. But, throwing on the move was something I think Burrow did well. So he sort of fit more into that newfangled idea of what a quarterback can be in the NFL than Mac did. But I definitely see I understand the argument, because it's hard to separate the player from who's around them and say, what would he have done with lesser receivers, or what would Burrow have done without the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line and, a first-round running back, et cetera. So it's a fair question. Mac Jones is always going to answer those, but to Mac's credit, he also went to the Senior Bowl and performed very well. He was clearly the best quarterback there in unfamiliar surroundings with receivers he'd never thrown to, and so on. So I think that's a good test for evaluators to say, okay, he's not wholly dependent on who his talent is around him.
It is interesting. And speaking of Mac Jones, at least the final question here, quarterback-wise, of the main guys, in your latest mock draft, you have Trevor Lawrence going number 1. Shocker. Zach Wilson going number 2 to the Jets. You do have Mac Jones 3 to the 49ers. Trey Lance going number 4 to the Falcons. Justin Fields going to the Broncos at number 9. So let's just say the NFL draft plays out that exact way as you did it. You nail all 5 picks. Which quarterback think has the most success in the NFL if that's how it shakes out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a risk with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I think, everybody sort of puts him in that no doubt category, and it's only because he's been in the spotlight for 3 years. And, it's not as if there aren't, warts to his game. He hasn't faced an excessive amount of pressure in his career. I think he showed some toughness last year in the playoffs when he sort of fought back against Ohio State and, took a few brutal hits. He also got beat up in the playoff game this year. And, it was, I hate to say it in this way, but it was good to see him, and he could take a hit and keep coming. But, obviously Urban Meyer, first-year head coach in the NFL. Nick Saban couldn't make it in the NFL as a head coach. There's no guarantee that Meyer will have success. And, we see this. I think some people reacted differently. I mean, the SI story about, kind of his, I don't need football attitude. And that may be fine with some teams, and it may not sit well with others. It's just going to be interesting to see if he doesn't have the kind of success that he did in high school and college in his first 3-4 years. Is there going to be that burning desire to kind of whip his team into a frenzy and get them, back on track a little bit? That could be something where his abilities are really put to the limit. So I still think he has a great chance to succeed, but he's not an infallible prospect. I would think Fields in Denver, with all those first round and second round tight ends and wide receivers they've collected, assuming they can get the offensive line in shape and there isn't a big shakeup on the coaching staff, could be a great spot for him too. I mean, they still have a defense that they've kind of bolstered this offseason a little bit. So I could see Fields beating out Drew Lock if he were to land there at Denver and having a good rookie year.
I'm with you there. I mean, yeah, Broncos would be a great landing spot for him. Like I said, all the talent they have skill-wise, running back, receiver, tight end, it would be – I don't know about Pat Shurmur as the offensive coordinator. Maybe got to make a change there, but that would be a lot of fun to watch in Denver for sure. So, and you can follow Eric on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Eric, you got some pushback, and it's funny. I like that you retweet some of the hate for your mock drafts.
Got to give them a voice. You got to let these people speak, right? Let them sing from the mountaintops. If they don't like it, they can have their word. That's all right with me.
You know what's funny too? What I like is I like they at least tweet the link. This mock draft is trash at Eric Edholm, but boom, there's the link. So people
got to retweet it. That's an auto retweet. If you give me one of those, you're getting a retweet. That's a fair trade.
That is true. So some of the pushback you've gotten from people is because at number 28, you have a 6th quarterback going in the first round, and that is Davis Mills. He is, especially the last 10 days, 2 weeks, he's been a hot name that's been rising on draft boards. What is it about Davis Mills' game, what he did at Stanford, what you see on tape that has him in your mind going in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit coy with that pick, to be totally honest. I mean, is there a chance that he could slip into the back end of round 1? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I wouldn't bet on it. But I will say that the 5th-year option, which is given to first-round picks, is something that's very attractive, especially for a quarterback who isn't likely to see the field a lot in year 1, right? You buy yourself essentially a 1-year extension to build them out and decide whether they have that ability to start. And the reason I paired him with New Orleans is, look, they've got Jameis on a short deal. They've got Taysom Hill, who's kind of a wild card option. They really don't have that developmental quarterback, and they've passed on so many of those in recent years with the idea of trying to build another Super Bowl winner. So, could that pairing make sense? Yes. Do I think he's automatically going to go in the first round? Boy, I don't know. I'd put the chances at about 10 or 20%. But to your question, I've watched 5 of his 11 college starts. So I've seen about half of his play in college. And other than the injuries, there's some things that are really interesting. I mean, he's got a big build. You see him throw, and you think, God, is this Andrew Luck? He kind of looks like Luck the way he delivers the ball. But there are also some very curious decisions on tape, too. I like the fact that he'll kind of hang in there against the rush and deliver a nice ball, sort of fearless, a big strapping kid at about 6'5", 225. Kind of fits that classic sort of pocket passer mold. I think he's a project, though. I think, you would have loved to seen a lot more than 11 college starts and kind of, you would have loved to have him beat out KJ Costello, which is, it's going to be filed under the negatives for him, and couldn't do it in 2019 before he got hurt. So, yeah, 504-yard game against Washington State, comeback against UCLA this year. I mean, he had some really nice moments, but it was up and down. So, strictly a potential pick, and I suspect more likely, he'll kind of be in that mid-second round range.
Do you think, let's say he doesn't go in the first round, is he the first quarterback off the board in the second round, you think, or is it Kellen Mond or Kyle Trask, kind of names we've been hearing throughout this entire process, you think?
Yeah, I think it's the order you just said. I think it's going to be Mills, Mond, Trask, and, teams that miss out on their quarterback in round 1, whether it's the Chicago Bears, New England Patriots, Saints, Washington football team, there's some ones out there. Minnesota Vikings, keep an eye on them. I've heard them, doing some work on Trask. And so, yeah, if I had to guess, I think there's a good shot that Mills and Mond go in round 2. I personally don't think Kellen Mond is worth a second round pick, but I understand why people are excited about him. He kind of looks a little like Colin Kaepernick style wise. He's a little kind of unusual throwing motion that'll kind of harken back to how Kaepernick used to throw, but he's that same style of athlete, maybe not quite as fleet of foot. The only issue with Mond is that the tape we saw as a sophomore in 2018 is almost identical to what we saw in 2020. There just wasn't a lot of growth. I mean, Jimbo Fisher's a pretty good quarterback coach now. I mean, he's done some work. He's made Christian Potter and EJ Manuel look like first round picks. So that worries me a little bit. I wonder if he's sort of hit his peak a little. But yeah, Trask, I would guess, would be essentially the 8th quarterback drafted, and I think he'll either go in round 3 or 4.
All right, I'm with you there on Mond for sure. Like you said, it was a nice 2020 for sure. But yeah, the first few years at A&M were interesting, definitely. We're talking to Eric Edholm, Yahoo Sports NFL Draft Reporter. 2 questions for you, non-quarterback questions for you, Eric, before we get out of here. I think it's interesting. Jamar Chase, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamar Chase is by far wide receiver 1 in this draft, correct?
No, I have him and Waddle close, but I have Chase 1, yeah.
So Waddle then perfect, because I was going to ask what separates Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, but what is it about Waddle then that has him kind of rising up boards to where he is surpassing Smith as the second best receiver and giving Chase a run for number 1?
Yeah, I mean, I would be a little bit surprised if Waddle was drafted ahead of Chase, but not shocked. I mean, I think, Jamar is a little bit more of your classic outside receiver. He can play with physicality. He can play with route running. He can win with route running. He can, play a physical style of football at the catch point. You see little flashes of Hines Ward in him a little bit, and even faster version. I mean, that type of sort of feisty player who can go up and win battles. Jalen Waddle is going to win with his separation speed and his quickness after the catch. I mean, he's a blur. I mean, he's the fastest, I think, offensive playmaker in this draft, with the ball in his hands or without. He's got incredible punt return ability that I think was somehow underused at Alabama. And he had 80 more yards than Devontae Smith receiving when he got hurt against Tennessee in the opening kickoff. So through 4 games, he was averaging 20 more yards per game. Pretty incredible stuff to think about what could have been. Again, I don't know that Devontae wins the Heisman in that case. Maybe Mac does. But, Yeah, I mean, it really was a tremendous start to the year, and showed some toughness coming back in the national title game. Would I have come back with a dislocated broken ankle? I don't know, but he really is that Tyreek Hill type of weapon. Maybe not quite as thickly built. That doesn't have that running back build, but an absolute blur after the catch. And I think Devontae Smith profiles a very good, future low-end number one receiver, very high-end number two, almost like a Calvin Ridley type of player. You'd like to see him have that, that Batman to his Robin if you ideally could. But I also think he could stand alone and be a top target eventually. He just is maxed out physically and isn't going to shock corners with his vertical speed. Then again, he just uncovers so naturally and works back to the ball. He's a fun player to watch.
He really is, and just especially watching Alabama, you always wonder, how is this guy so open? And he just makes it look, he does it with ease.
He works throughout the route. I mean, he finds leverage. He exploits your weakness. Very smart player, instinctive. And he's grown up a lot too. Early on, there were maturity questions, but he's made himself into a man, and it's been impressive to watch.
Final question for you, Eric, and this might be a dumb one, so if it is, please don't hold back. But a lot of we have a lot of picks that could go in the top 10. You have Micah Parsons, Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase, Trey Lance. Four of those guys, outside of Trey Lance playing that one exhibition game, sat out the 2020 season and opted out. Is there any, I don't know, I want to say concern is the right word. Is there any, is that not worrisome, but how do you think that could affect them? Maybe rookie year going, is that developmentally an issue at all, despite these guys, or do you think that
it's a great question? Yeah, no, I think NFL people are asking the very same question you are right now to all the prospects, and they're debating them. There are plenty of times that I'll use Mitch Trubisky as an example, and I don't mean to pick on Mitch. I am a Chicago guy, but the Bears saw more of him in 14 games than they did in Deshaun Watson with 36 or 7 games, and Patrick Mahomes with 29 college starts. So the idea is that in a one-year sample, an underclassman, I know Mitch was I think a redshirt junior at that point, but the point is, in 1 year, a player can look really, really good. We're having this debate with Greg Rousseau, 15 and a half sacks as a redshirt freshman. There's certainly Penei Sewell, winning the Outland Trophy as a 19-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
It's fair to wonder whether opponents could have adjusted, whether they could have taken a step back, what would have happened had they played in 2020. Progression is not linear, and that's always a debate. Is some guys look great as sophomores, by their senior year, they're considered good but not great prospects. So absolutely a fair question to ask. And I found it really interesting at the Senior Bowl. There were some players who took the year off, didn't have football, like the Division III kid from Wisconsin, Whitewater, goes down there, dominates. Nico Collins from Michigan opted out. He went down there, had a really strong week. Whereas other opt-outs showed their rust, and they looked a little bit slower and a little less quick reacting than some of the players who had a full season. So there will be an effect, and we're going to miss on some of these opt-out guys just because it's a little bit unprecedented.
It's going to be fascinating. I'm sure it makes your job a lot harder, which is just what you want at this time of the year, right, Eric? It's hard enough as it is to project it and scout.
I love the challenge. Are you kidding me? I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You can hang it on me, the freezing cold takes and all that. I'm fine with that. It has forced me to recalibrate a few things, and it is sort of an interesting experiment.
Be a lot of fun to see how it goes. You can follow Eric's work on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Read him because it's a great work at Yahoo Sports. Eric, I really appreciate the time. 2 weeks here. The home stretch is almost there. The light's at the end of the tunnel. Best of luck and enjoy the next few weeks here.
I will. I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Thank you to Eric Edholm. And the last question, especially I'm with him. It is not that teams should pause on drafting Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell or Trey Lance or Micah Parsons. It is fascinating, though, what kind of that 1 year left. To Eric's point, Penei Sewell was the best lineman in 2018. He's very young, 19 years old. What adjustments? And we see that even in the NFL, too. Guys, rookie years explode on the scene. RG3 wins Rookie of the Year. Justin Herbert explodes on the scene this year. How do they adjust to the adjustments? Now that the tape is out, now that defensive coordinators spent all offseason game planning and scheming to stop these guys, one way or another, offensively, defensively, interesting to see now those that didn't play in 2020 didn't have a chance to kind of show their adjustments to the adjustments at college. We'll see how it goes in the NFL. It'll be very fascinating to see. We do appreciate Eric's time. We'll circle back some things he said. I do want to incorporate some things Eric said into a conversation 20 minutes from now. Top 5 non-quarterbacks in the NFL draft. We come back, and we still have to do the top 3 win totals Vegas got right. We did the 3 they got wrong, so we'll do that in half hour from now. The top 3 NFL win totals for 2021 Vegas got right. When we come back on the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, we will hit on Kevin Durant. He missed last night's game against the Sixers. Was it a good decision? Was it wise from the Nets? Or did they make a mistake? We'll discuss next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It is the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We appreciate Eric Edholm for giving us a few minutes here from Yahoo Sports. A very fun, interesting discussion when it comes to the NFL Draft. 2 weeks away from today. 2 weeks away from today. So I don't know about you. I am at the point where I am ready to go here. I am done debating Mac Jones or Justin Fields. I am done talking about Zach Wilson to the Jets, Trevor Lawrence, what's he going to be? Does he like football? Does he not like football? There's always a lot of discussions that I think are fun, and the 49ers definitely helped create more storylines trading up from 12 to 3, so thank you for that, San Francisco. But I am ready now to start projecting the other way. Instead of projecting who should go where, I'm ready to start projecting now that we have the results. Now we know who San Fran takes. Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. Now we know where all these other quarterbacks land, where Kyle Pitts lands, where Jamar Chase lands. I am ready to start projecting NFL projections. Like, I'm ready to project, instead of where they're going to go, now what can they do on the field? I am very ready for that conversation. 2 weeks away from today, we will have a draft show, preview show. We'll be on the air in the morning like we normally are, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. On the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. So very excited about that. And we do appreciate Eric joining us here for a few minutes. As a reminder, we're coming to you live of every hour of every show on the Ryan Hickey Show right here from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios. Great pizza, pot heroes, and phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria, Person in Medford, Joe's Pizzeria in Bayshore, classic New York pizza joint also in Bayshore, or online at Big Italy Pizza, BigItalyPizza.com, excuse me. So we will circle back to the NFL draft talk in 15 minutes or so. I have a big board, top 5 non-quarterbacks in the NFL draft, because we got to give those guys some love. And we also have win totals, the ones Vegas got right. I'll rehash, in case you missed it in the first hour, I will rehash the 3 Vegas got wrong. I think there are 3 teams they are massively underrating. Massively underrating, and I think 3 teams were their numbers spot on. So we'll do that in a half hour, 10:40 Eastern, where Vegas was right, where Vegas was wrong, NFL win total-wise, courtesy of Fox Bet. But I do want to get some NBA here quickly, because last night you had a supposedly, or what was supposed to be, I should say, billed as a marquee matchup in the NBA. Sixers, Nets, both tied atop the Eastern Conference standings going to last night's game. A game that could determine the number 1 seed in the East. Why is that important? Forget just home court for a second here. It's important because the number 1 seed basically gets an easy road, obviously, but you get to avoid the Bucks in round 2, and then either, Nets or Sixers, depending on who gets the number 1 seed, you get to avoid the back-to-back of playing the Bucks, then either another opponent. You basically get to cruise control through the first 2 rounds for the most part, and then face the big threat in the East come conference championship time. Conference finals time, excuse me. Conference championship, thinking football in the brain here. But anyway, so last night, my apologies. So obviously, James Harden out. Kyrie Irving did return, but the guy who sat out last night that set Twitter ablaze, was Kevin Durant. Second night of back-to-back, they played in Minnesota on Tuesday afternoon. Then played last night in Philadelphia against the Sixers. Kevin Durant was sat. Whether he decided to play, not to play, whether Steve Nash and the team made the decision, one way or another, Kevin Durant did not play last night. And again, that set Nets Twitter especially off into a frenzy. Freaking out, bad call, this is a must-win, this is the biggest game of the regular season, gotta play. I'll defend the Nets here. And you know me, this is a show where I have said multiple times, and I'm not backing down, I don't think the Nets are winning the championship. I don't think they're getting to the finals. I don't. I have severe reservations that, honestly, we can't at this point really see if they come to fruition not until the playoffs. And I am not a Nets believer. With that said, though, I think last night the decision to sit Kevin Durant was absolutely the right one. Because the one seed is not the concern for the Nets. Their only concern should be Kevin Durant's health. That's it. So, no, I'm sorry. I'm not prioritizing a Wednesday night game in April over a possibility that Kevin Durant could hurt himself and be out for the playoffs or not be 100% come playoff time. Because as we know, he has a hamstring injury, had a hamstring strain, missed a ton of time. If he played last night, if he's pushing it to where, you know what, maybe he's sore. Again, he's starting to work back into game shape. If he is not physically ready to be playing back-to-backs, if he's not physically ready to be playing 35 minutes against the Sixers, and he tweaks the hammy, or even worse, hurts it worse than he initially did, the Nets are done. I'm sorry. They're not. I don't think they're winning a title with the big three. They are certainly not winning a title with James Harden and Kyrie Irving as the 1-2 punch there without Kevin Durant in the playoffs. So you got to realize, Kevin Durant gets hurt, your season's over. And the short window that's already there, 1 year is knocked off. Again, let's not forget. So before last night, he played in the last 3 Nets games. Before that, before he returned to play in 3 straight Nets games, he missed 26 out of the last 27 games with a hamstring strain. So what sense, if you're and this is Nets fans freaking out. So I'll ask you, the Nets fan, or even just you, the NBA fan, what sense does it make if you realize your title hopes are tied to most directly Kevin Durant and his health? What sense does it have to push a guy who missed 26 out of the last 27 games? What sense does it make to push him from 0 to 100 just because you're playing the Sixers in April? To maybe get first place and get the tiebreaker doesn't assure you first place, or does it give you a 1-game lead and give you a tiebreaker moving forward against Sixers? That's it. So what sense does it make to push a guy from 0 to 100 to try to potentially put yourself in a situation where you are the 1 seed, but you believe as the Nets that you have the talent to win the title no matter who you play? So I'm sorry, I don't get that frustration from Nets fans. I am not a Nets fan, so I can't put myself in their shoes. But I feel like as a rational fan here, I'm talking as the rational fan, as a guy who doesn't believe in the Nets. What sense does it make for the Nets to push Kevin Durant last night? It doesn't make any, because they're playing. I'm sorry, because you're playing the Sixers isn't an excuse, or doesn't justify, I should say, pushing a guy if he's not ready. As we know, especially with hamstring injuries in any sport, it doesn't take a lot to hurt the hammy again. It's not an injury that you come back from and boom, you're 100%, like a broken bone, it's healed already, or, I don't know, a little sprain, it heals. This is something that the Nets are going to have to massage the rest of the year. And that's what the rest of the regular season should be for the Nets. They have 18 games left in their schedule. The only motivation, the only goal should be ramping Kevin Durant back up to where come playoff time, he is ready to play 35 minutes a night at least. That's it. So if part of that ramp-up period is resting him on the second night of back-to-back against the Sixers, so be it. So be it. I don't honestly get the frustration from Nets fans. Because I'll also say this. At this point, with the way Kevin Durant's played, it's not like he needs to get back and knock the rust off. This guy has come back and amazingly played great. He has played in the 3 games he's returned like he's been playing the entire season. Like he didn't miss 26 out of 27 games. Like he didn't just come off the couch. In the 3 games he's returned, again, since missing 26 27 games, he's averaged 23.3 points per game. he is shooting 7 of 12 from 3, 65% overall from the field in the 3 games he's played since returning from injury. So this guy is fine when he's playing. And again, because James Harden's already hurt with a hamstring injury, and he's not playing, it's not like the big 3 of KD, Kyrie, and Harden were missing an opportunity to get valuable reps together on the court last night. Harden's already out. So again, wouldn't you want to ensure your team is as healthy as possible come playoff time? To me, that answer is yes, and that's why I think resting Kevin Durant last night was absolutely the right move. Absolutely the right move. And you know what's funny? The NBA season is long, just like, baseball, just like hockey, to where so many games are played, the narrative changes. I remember early on in the season, when it's first started, I was very concerned about the workload Kevin Durant was doing in terms of playing too much. I was worried Steve Nash was running this guy into the ground too early. Remember, obviously he got hurt in the finals 2 years ago, missed all of last season with the Achilles injury. He comes back before the All-Star break. He was 11th in the NBA in minutes played. He was averaging 35.8 minutes per game played. And he was in the 40s for a 10-game stretch for a while, including playing one 50-minute game when a game went to overtime. And this is a guy that didn't rest, that wasn't playing every night. He was playing no load management. He was playing every night and playing a ton. I was worried Steve Nash was running this guy into the ground. Too much too soon, to where he's coming off of a year of sitting on the shelf, and now Steve Nash is running him into the ground. So you have that perspective where before he got hurt, is he playing too much? Is Steve Nash running this guy into the ground? Is he going to get hurt again because he's not ready to take on the workload of all these minutes and all these games after sitting on the couch for the last year and a half? And now here we are freaking out. Not we, but there are people freaking out that Kevin Durant sat against the Sixers on a Wednesday night in April. I don't get what the big deal is. I think it's absolutely the right move with Steve Nash, with the organization. If it's Kevin Durant's call, what Kevin Durant did last night. The end goal is the finals. The end goal is the playoffs here. Whatever it takes to ensure he is healthy for that is all that matters. If that even means giving up home court advantage, giving up the number 1 seed, fine. Because guess what? If you're the Nets, even if you are the 2 and you got to face the Bucks in round number 2, you should feel confident that you have the talent to do so. You put all this roster together, this all-star roster, the Monstars. Are you really that nervous? Like, that's something, too. This is Nets fans. To be fair, if I was them, I'd feel this way as well. You should feel confident that your team is the most talented team in the NBA. No team should scare you. So if that's the case, why are we freaking out that you're not going to get the 1 seed, then you got to play the Bucks in round 2? Now, I'm not a believer in the Nets. I think that's actually a bad matchup for them. I think that they could be in trouble going from having a grind with the Bucks, and if they win that series, then go against the Sixers, then go against the Western Conference team in the finals. They make it that far. But you should feel confident that you have the most talented team out there. No team can take you down. And again, you have no shot if Kevin Durant is out or not 100%. Use these last 18 games to ramp up Kevin Durant's health to make sure he is 100% healthy. The hamstring won't be an issue to where he won't have to sit out playoff games or be on a minutes restriction because he's still not back to 100%. Could you imagine the conversation a month from now where Kevin Durant's only allowed to play 30 minutes a game, 28 minutes a game because they have to load manage his hamstring because it's still not healthy because they decide instead of sitting him and doing the right thing now in April, they decide we're going to push it. Second night of back-to-back, we're going to put this guy in the court here. He's still coming back and working back from a hamstring injury. He's only played 3 games since missing 26 out of the last 27. We're going to push it. And he tweaks it, doesn't allow it to get healthy. And this is something that's nagging the entire rest of the year throughout the playoffs. Be a disaster. A total disaster. So the Nets did the right thing in sitting Kevin Durant. I'm curious your thoughts. Were you like the Twitter mob last night? Were you freaking out and upset that Kevin Durant did not play against the Sixers? Or was it, looking ahead, the right move made by Brooklyn? So get your thoughts. Facebook Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio. At Ryan Hickey Show on Twitter as well. We'll get your thoughts. And when we return, Eric Edholm just joined us. We talked a little NFL draft. We talked a lot of quarterbacks with Eric. And obviously that has been the storyline, that has been the focus in this NFL draft. Which quarterback is going where? Who's the second best quarterback in the draft? How many could go in the first round? We're gonna talk draft, not about the quarterbacks. We're talking top 5 non-quarterbacks heading into this draft. We'll do that when the Ryan Hickey Show returns right here. Where else? The Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome back into the Ryan Hickey Show with you till 11 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you're liking us on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Following us on Twitter, WWSRN_radio. Like us on YouTube, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Most importantly, download the app. The easiest way to stay in touch with everything going on in the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. WWSRN if you have an iPhone, Worldwide Sports Radio Network if you have an Android. You can listen to all of the great shows we have on our network, and we have a ton. I wouldn't lie to you. I wouldn't lead you in the wrong direction. Again, this show is about honesty. This show is about you, the audience. I'm trying to build a connection with you. Part of the connection is trust, right? How can you listen to someone? How can you want to tune into a show? How do you want to even just talk sports if you don't trust the person you're listening to? So I wouldn't, my show hopefully is based upon trust and you trusting me to not only give you, the biggest sports news of the day, but also give it to you in a way that is entertaining, thought-provoking, creates a discussion. That's what we're here for. So if you trust me there, I promise you I'm leading you in the right direction when it comes to liking the rest of the shows on the network. We have a ton. Sports, Loudmouths, brand new show, Errol Marks, Josh Silverberg, all over at Speedy Petey. Tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, is where you can listen to them. Great new show. Smoke and Mirrors, my guy Declan. The Sports Hit List. The B Show. There are plenty of shows. I can go on and on. Honestly, if I listed every show on the network, I'd be here till 9 p.m. Eastern. Tons of great betting shows. So do yourself a favor, following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, liking us on YouTube, downloading the app, visiting the website, worldwidesportsradio.com. Allows you to stay up to date with every single show on the network. I promise you won't be disappointed. You will not be disappointed. So like I said, we are here till 11 a.m. Eastern. It is the Ryan Hickey Show every Monday, every Thursday with you on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Before we do, actually, I'll do it later. Sorry. Program now, I'll do it later. But we had Eric Edholm on the show before talking some NFL draft, and we focused a lot on quarterbacks. Right? That's what everyone wants to talk about. I want to talk about things that people are talking about. Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, where are they going to go? Who should go here? Who should go there? But let's talk about some other guys in the draft that are not quarterbacks. I have a top 5 big board, if you will. And you go top 5 non-quarterbacks. We go 5 through 1, best players, non-quarterbacks. Number 5, and we talked about this with Eric Edholm, I have Devontae Smith. He likes it, and there are a lot of people, not just Eric, but Jalen Waddle's really getting a lot of steam right now as potentially being the second best receiver in this class, going in the top 10 maybe. I still like Devontae Smith because you look at the size, you think, okay, this guy's not good, but all he does is produce. And he does everything well. He's a solid route runner. He has tremendous hands. And look, too, to Eric's point, all Devontae Smith does is just get open. And it's funny because the more you watch Alabama, especially this year, because think about it, Jalen Waddle got hurt earlier in the year in that Tennessee game, first month of the season. So most of Devontae Smith's damage was done after Waddle was out when he was the main threat to the offense. He was Mac Jones' go-to guy. And what happened? Every game, this guy still produced 120, 150 receiving yards, 200 yards, 220. This guy put up over 200 yards in the national title game against Ohio State in the first half. Just the first, not the game. just the first half, he could have honestly, this guy could have went, we could have seen a record receiving-wise in a game, in the national championship game, if he didn't hurt his finger and miss the second half against Ohio State. So the fact that, I'm going to give you a lot of credit, that sure, size-wise, you're 6'1", 175. If you're looking at me, I am 5'11", 175. Me and Devontae Smith weigh the same amount. But here's the difference. I'm not getting open. I'm not strong enough to withstand some of these hits. My hands aren't strong enough to catch the balls that are thrown to while I'm getting hit. Devontae Smith, you know what he just did? He just produced. No frills about his game. He's not going to wow you. Running the 40. All he does was go out there, get open. And, it sounds easy. It's not easy to do. We saw Jalen Reagor, a guy in Philly, that I thought personally was misused, but he is a very fast receiver. He struggled to get open last year. All Devontae Smith does is just get open. I think he'll be a tremendous receiver wherever he ends up going in the first round. I had Devontae Smith, number 5, non-quarterback on my big board. Number 4, the only defensive player on here, Micah Parsons. Now, if you look behind me here, I have a Penn State poster of Beaver Stadium in a whiteout. You could say Homer. I'm not being objective. Here's why I disagree. Because I try to be objective no matter if I'm talking about the teams I like or not. But Micah Parsons, to me, watching his skill set, and he didn't play in 2020. So, take that for what you will. He's one of those guys where me and Eric were talking about it. What kind of impact could they have, or could there be rust, slow start, etc.? Maybe we're overhyping them because we didn't have extra tape to watch. We're watching tape from 2 years ago. But I think Micah Parsons is a guy that lives up to the hype because he is your prototypical linebacker in today's NFL. He is just a physical freak that can do really anything that's asked of him. Think about it, right? If you're a defender, your job in today's NFL is harder than it's ever been. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger with all the flags that are thrown. It's hard to play defense. But Micah Parsons has the build, especially for a linebacker, that is perfect, quintessential for trying to play good defense in 2021. He is fast enough to keep up with linebackers. He's a linebacker. He's fast enough to keep up with tight ends and running backs in pass coverage. He ran, in case you missed it, a 4.39 40. 4.39 40 for a linebacker. So, if he has to go up against George Kittle, Travis Kelce, whatever tight end you want to put out there for him, he is fast enough and athletic enough to keep up with those freaks. He's a tackling machine. In 2 years at Penn State, he registered 191 tackles. Rarely does he miss. Eats them up. 14 tackles for loss in 2019 alone. He can rush the passer as well. So he can get after the quarterback, make havoc in the backfield, and then in pass coverage as well, and not just be a liability. He's athletic enough and fast enough to shadow and mirror guys like Travis Kelce, who were just killing the league. Killing the league. So to me, he is the perfect linebacker for what you want in 2020, 2021. Athletic freak. That's why to me he is number 4. Number 3, speaking of freak, Penei Sewell. Pro Football Focus, they give out grades, college and the NFL, for every play, for every player. Penei Sewell at Oregon, who, again, another player that sat out of 2020, but when he played in 2019, he received the highest tackle grade ever given out for a college lineman. That was by PFF. The highest graded tackle ever in PFF's history. Why is that, you ask? Thank you for asking. Glad you did ask. He has the perfect combination. Elite size and speed. This guy's a monster. He's a mauler. But also, he's fast and athletic. And again, the game now, right, in the NFL, it's a lot about speed. So you could be massive. You could be 6'8", 400 pounds if you want as an offensive lineman. If you're not fast, if you're not athletic, if you don't have quick feet, these smaller guys that are maybe 150 pounds lighter than you at defensive end or outside linebacker that are rushing by you are going to do that. Rush right by you. Run right by you. Get your quarterback killed because you are too slow. That's what makes Penei Sewell so talented. That's why he is going to be the number 1 tackle off the board. Arguably a top 5 or top 6 pick, depending on how things go in the draft. At least that's what he should be in my mind. He's 6'5", 330 pounds. He plays big, but he also plays fast. He's fast enough and athletic enough to get out on the edge. Because now, as we see, there are more and more athletic freaks rushing the passer. Because guess what? You get paid to hit the quarterback. When you're looking at salary, quarterback number 1, no one will ever catch that. But number 2, it's growing fast, is rusher, pass rusher. Either as an outside linebacker or a defensive end. Can you hit the quarterback? Can you take him down? Can you consistently cause havoc in the backfield? Guys that prevent that, athletic freaks like Penei Sewell. First sophomore, you heard Eric mention before, first sophomore to win the Outland Trophy in the history, which is given to the best lineman. Flat out best lineman. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman, best lineman. He was the first sophomore to win it. So to me, he's one of those guys where you pick, automatic plug and play for a decade. Don't worry about it. Set it and forget it. That's why to me, Penei Sewell's number 3. Number 3. So Devontae Smith 5, Micah Parsons 4, Penei Sewell 3. Number 2, I have Jamar Chase. I love Jamar Chase. This guy is just a stud. In another year, second year in a row, we have a deep wide receiver class. To me, he is elite at everything, and that's why he is the best receiver in another deep class. He is a great and tremendous route runner. Solid, crazy hands, great speed. Similar to Devontae Smith, just gets open. I mean, again, I understand 2019, especially it's a little different because Devontae Smith, especially when Jalen Waddle went down, it was just him. Where you look at that 2019 LSU team, it was Terrence Marshall who's in this draft, and to me is a great receiver. Justin Jefferson, we saw arguably Rookie of the Year with Minnesota, what his impact coming to the Vikings, he was tremendous. But Jamar Chase stood out among those talents, and that's another thing too. You could, say, oh, he's playing with so many guys. It's easy for him when he's getting one-on-one coverage all the time. So many options to go to when you're playing with a historic offense like LSU had in 2019. He also stood out and easily stood out the way Joe Burrow stood out among everybody. I was reading a story. The Athletic did a great deep dive about Jamar Chase and just kind of the process, getting ready for the draft, stuff like that, talking to his parents, talking to him. And the author, and I apologize, I forget the name, he was talking to scouts going back to last year, talking to prospective corners and safeties in last year's draft, talking about, hey, who are some of the best receivers you've gone up against, assuming they would list other guys, and again, in a deep receiver class in 2020. The name that kept coming up, Jamar Chase. A guy who's not even eligible for the draft. He was a sophomore in 2019. He won the Biletnikoff Trophy as the best receiver in college football. He lit everyone up. I think he's going to do that. Forgotten name because, again, he opted out in 2020, out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. Jamar Chase, I mean, not in terms of NFL circles, but just in terms of being, the average fan. Jamar Chase, best receiver in the NFL, in college football. He's going to be a stud. Whether it's Cincinnati, whether it's Miami, he is going to be a stud. And finally, speaking of studs, my number 1 player that's not a quarterback, one of the best players, just flat out quarterback or not in the draft, Kyle Pitts. We talked about Micah Parsons being the perfect guy to now cover an age where where the tight end is really taking over the game because they're so big, they're so fast, they're so strong. That safeties, corners, linebackers, too slow, too small, too weak to keep up with these guys. Kyle Pitts going to the NFL is a walking mismatch. Okay, let me just highlight it for you. So he's 6'6", 240. Prototypical massive tight end frame, but he runs a 4.44 40. Fast, massive. He's a touchdown machine. In just 8 games last year for Florida, he had 12 touchdowns. Like I said, he is too fast for a linebacker to cover. He is too massive for a corner to match up on, and he's too strong for a safety to try to lock down. I think, to me, he could be a lot like Travis Kelce. I think he could really make a big impact in this draft and have a lot of success going forward. He, to me, is easily the best non-quarterback in this draft. So Pitts 1, Chase 2, Sewell 3, Parsons 4, Devontae Smith 5. I'd love to hear who is the best non-quarterback in this draft. We'll get your thoughts on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, or also on at Ryan Hickey Show on Twitter as well. Excuse me. When we come back, finally to wrap up the show, we talked about it a little earlier, but we'll circle back to the conversation. Fox Bet put out their win totals for every NFL team in 2021. As we know, Vegas is in the business of making money. I think there are 3 teams where Vegas is massively wrong on, underrating. I think they're going to get burned money-wise. I think there are 3 teams Vegas truly did get right. I'll tell you what those 6 teams are next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome back in the final segment here on the Ryan Hickey Show for this Thursday, this rainy, this cloudy Thursday morning. A lot of NFL draft talk this morning. We appreciate, again, Eric Edholm for giving us a few minutes here. It's been a fun show. It's been flying by these last 2 hours. Hopefully we will end it on a fun note as well. So I'll rehash in case you missed it earlier in the show. Fox Bet put out their win totals for the 2021 NFL season. They gave every single team their over-under win totals, how many games they think they'll win. And to me, as we know, right, usually Vegas puts these numbers out. They try to be right. The house always wins, is what everyone says. 3 cases, I think they're right. I think 3 teams they are spot on with their over-unders. I'll get them in a second here. But there are 3 teams where I think Vegas is totally wrong, where they are massively underrating 3 teams, where they think they're going to get burned if you put some money down on it, and they will be paying out big time. So what are those 3 teams? We'll get to where you can make some money first. Browns, to me, at 9.5 is a lock for the over. I love Cleveland heading into 2021. We started the show. So that's why I think the Browns are the 3rd best team in the AFC, behind the Chiefs, behind the Bills. Well, if you look by win totals alone, the Browns, or I should say there are 3 teams, with higher win totals than Cleveland. Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. 4 teams tied with the Browns with that 9.5 number. The Titans, the Colts, the Chargers, the Patriots. All 5 of those teams have 9.5 win totals. I think the Browns are by far and away the best team in that group. I think they're easily better, easily the 3rd team in the AFC. I think they're better than the Ravens because I like the way this team is built. I think they progressed nicely under Kevin Stefanski in year 1. I think that will continue in 2021. Baker Mayfield, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions in year number 1. First time in his career. He'll have the same offense from year 1 to year 2. I think he will grow. I think he will thrive. They address the secondary, which is their biggest weakness in free agency. I like the way the Browns are going. I think they are by far and away going to surpass the 9.5 number. And remember, 17 games this year. So they're saying 9-8, 10-7 is where I think the Browns are going to be. I think they're going to be well above that number. 11-6, 12-5, hell, maybe 13-4. I am buying into Cleveland. They are the 3rd best team in the AFC for me. I think they will surpass the 9.5 number. So that's my first team where I think Vegas is wrong. Second team, the Dolphins, 8.5. Are they really going to be a team hovering and teetering at 500? I don't think so. Last year, they won 10 games despite Tua having a rocky first year. And despite the fact that collection-wise, running backs, tight ends, receivers, the Dolphins had one of the worst skill position groups in all of the NFL. Now, they signed Will Fuller, which, okay, I'm not a big fan of Will between his injury history. Now we got pop for PEDs. I think he has 1 game left in a suspension. I just don't trust him to be healthy for a full time. But when he's on the field, deep threat for Tua. And they'll get, most likely, especially if 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks, they could either get the likings of Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase, which is going to be a massive upgrade for this offense. Worst case scenario, you get Penei Sewell and solidify the offensive line and give Tua more time. But I think, to be honest, this team is trending in the right direction. I like the way Brian Flores is guiding the ship. I think this team is continuing to build, continuing to go in the upward trajectory. I like Tua. I'm a believer in Tua. I think year 2, he will be better. I'm taking the Dolphins over 8.5 wins. And the Buccaneers. Now, they have the 2nd highest win total at 11.5, only behind the Chiefs. But I'll say this. Last year, the Bucs went 11-5, and they had a very shaky first 12 games of the year where they were 7-5. And remember, why were they 7-5 last year? Because Tom Brady, for the first time in his career, was on a new team. He was playing with new teammates. He was in a brand new offensive system to where Bruce Arians is chucking the ball down the field, and Byron Leftwich is saying, we're going to throw. Where Tom Brady, as we know, is the New England offense was death by a dozen paper cuts, no turnovers. K with the underneath game, the underneath routes to slot receivers, to tight ends, and to running backs. So Tom Brady, in a new system with new coaches and new teammates, won the Super Bowl, but the first 12 games were kind of getting the rust off. Well, now the Buccaneers return all 22 starters from last year's team. Tom Brady is familiar and comfortable with the offense. He knows the receivers. He has continuity built up with them to where now I think 2021 is going to be even better than 2020. This team is going to hit the ground running from week 1. So I think, bottom, absolute floor for them, 12-5. I think they could be 14-3, 15-2. This team is going to be really good barring injury. So I am very bullish on the Buccaneers. I think they will surpass 11.5. So 3 teams I think Vegas got truly wrong. Buccaneers, 11.5. Dolphins, 8.5. Browns, 9.5. I think all 3 of those teams are going to surpass their win total, and Vegas is going to be paying mightily. Now, to give them credit, because again, the house wins, right? Vegas, all those buildings, all of that beauty that is out there in the desert is built on losing. Built on me and you losing. They know better than us. So I'll give them credit. So I think there are 3 numbers where they are spot on with. They hit the nail on the head that if you look at it, maybe that looks wrong. No way this team's going to be this good or this bad. To me, I think they're spot on. Here's what I'll say. Cardinals, 8.5. Again, are the Cardinals going to be hovering around 500? 8-9, 9-8 in that territory? They have Kyler Murray after all. I love Kyler Murray. They got off to that hot start, 6-3, one of the best offenses in the NFL. Yeah, they sputtered towards the end, but that's okay. They'll bounce back in 2021. No, I'm with Vegas here. Last year, the second half of the year, those last 7 games are not an anomaly. It's not a blip on the radar. That 2-5 finish, where they averaged 20.5 points per game and missed the playoffs, that is who Cliff Kingsbury is. This guy at Texas Tech or with the Cardinals, when he's been head coach, his teams without fault since 2013, they have struggled to the finish every single year. And I'm not saying this year is going to be any different. I'm buying in. I like the Cardinals. I like the talent on their team. I don't like Cliff Kingsbury. This is a playoff team in my mind with a different head coach. Because Cliff is there, whether it's lack of adjustments, whether it's getting afraid or clenching up in the moment, whatever it is, whatever that leads him and his teams to falter in the end, year in and year out, I am buying into it. So I think he's the issue. Because Cliff Kingsbury's still there, I think the Cardinals are going to, despite having all this talent, they signed J.J. Watt, they got some big names, they have DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, they got A.J. Green. I think the Cardinals will hover around 500. So I think Vegas is spot on with this 8.5 number. Steelers also at 8.5 to me, I think is perfect by Las Vegas. I'm not a big fan of the Steelers. Now, remember, I do agree, and I said this when this happened, I do agree with the Steelers re-signing Big Ben. I think that was the move they had to make. I think it was the only move they could have made quarterback-wise for 2021. Short-term, 1-year dealing, this is going to be it for Big Ben. I didn't like the options they had. He gives them the best chance to win in 2021. With that said, though, I think the last 6 games we saw Big Ben play and that offense play, I think that is truly what the Steelers are going forward. Not the first 9 games where they were, 9-0 and everything was hunky-dory and we were questioning could they actually go undefeated. They averaged just 22.1 points per game, including the playoff loss to the Browns, the last 6 starts Big Ben made. The offense, as we know, was one-dimensional. They could not run the ball. They were dead last in the NFL in rushing. They lost James Conner. He goes to the Cardinals. I don't know how that's going to change. Nothing the Steelers did, in my mind, solidifies balance on the offensive line. Or on the offense, I don't see they're going to run the ball any better this year than they did last year, which means you're going to have Big Ben throwing the ball 50 times a game again. And this is a guy, Big Ben, he finished 3rd in pass attempts in the NFL. But with a caveat, 1 less game he played than Matt Ryan and Tom Brady, who are 1-2 in the NFL. So if he played all 16 games, he would have surpassed and been the league leader in attempts for a season. That is not the recipe for success. Absolutely not. So I think the tail end of the last third of the season, if you will, of 2020 is truly how the Steelers will be in 2021. Really talented defense. Lost Bud Dupree. We'll see. Bud Dupree's okay. But he was playing well before he got hurt. I think the Steelers are going to be struggling. I think they're going to be a 500 team this year. I think they'll be right around that 8.5 number. 9-8, 8-9, I think right in that range. I love that. I think Vegas is spot on. And finally, the Titans at 9.5. A team like the Browns in that 9.5 number. I thought the Browns were massively underrated. I think the Titans are spot on here. I think this is a team that's going to be hovering at 500. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They're a team that's regressed. The Titans are a team that honestly, I'm not really high on. They lost Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith this offseason. Why is that big? Well, those are the number 2 and number 3 receivers. Those 2 last year combined for 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns. They replaced 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns with Josh Reynolds, Anthony Firkser. Yeah. No offense to those guys. I don't think that they're going to be coming in here and putting up that same production that Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith did when they walked out the door. I'm not sold on Ryan Tannehill. I think he's okay. I think he's a product more of the situation around him. I like Derrick Henry running again. It's different. I like the 49ers and the Ravens system of running the ball, but they do it in a variety of ways. The Titans don't really do that. They just hand the ball to Derrick Henry and said, hey, go run people over. I think that comes back to bite them, and I think that's a situation where Titans are 9.5, I think, right around 500 is where they'll be hovering for this season. So I think the Titans, the Steelers, and the Cardinals. Cardinals 8.5, Steelers 8.5, Titans 9.5. I think all three of those Vegas got right. They were spot on with their over-under numbers. So we'll dive into it more on Monday. We'll get your thoughts. If you have any thoughts, you can give them now, and we can push back on social media at Ryan Hickey Show, or not push back, give my thoughts, agree or disagree, at Ryan Hickey Show on Twitter. If you want to tweet me there, you can write on Facebook on the live stream. I'll see that as well. Before we get out of here, it is a special day. I just want to give a quick shout out here. April 15th, it is my girlfriend Lauren's birthday. I'm not sure she's listening. She's getting the big shot, so she's halfway to being bulletproof. Lauren, happy birthday. Hope you enjoy the big 2-7. I know she loves the fame. She loves the shout-outs. She wants all the glitz and glam of the birthday shout-outs. So quickly, happy birthday, Lauren. Enjoy it. And enjoy that birthday shot. So I'll do it for this edition of the Ryan Hickey Show. Really appreciate all of you who tuned in. We appreciate Eric Edholm for giving us a few minutes here, talk about the NFL draft. Have a great week. Rest of your week. Almost there. Hey, 1.5 more days to go. We appreciate you tuning in. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Stay sane. We'll talk to you on Monday right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.